Well, hey guys, what is up? It's a Friday, Flannel Friday to be precise, which also means it is time for Verses of the Week. Let's go. Well, guys, I want to say welcome if you're new to this channel, or welcome back if you're returning. I am so glad that you are here. This channel is all about talking about life, Jesus, and the journey of faith in a real, honest, and open way, and we are passionate about the beautiful simplicity and transformative power of the gospel. If you are new and that interests you, I'd encourage you to hit subscribe to become a part of what we're doing here on this channel. Well, guys, as I said, it's time for Verses of the Week, which is a time when each week we go through either a whole book at a time or a portion of a book and look at some of the verses that just really stood out to me as I was reading it throughout the week, with the hope of inspiring you to spend more time getting to know the Word of God, allowing it to dwell in you and change the way that you see the world. And hopefully these verses provide you with that inspiration and that spark to go do that. So today we're in the book of James, and James is just, it's a fantastic book. It's kind of like the Proverbs of the New Testament, filled with wisdom, and really lends itself well to a format like this. And it's a book that I'd encourage you, if you're doing like a Bible study, it can be a really great book for just like practical application right away. But without too much just build up and talk, why don't we just get into it and start going through some of these verses. So in chapter 1, right from the get-go, verse 2, it says this: "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness." That's James 1, verses 2 through 3. And you're going to see this kind of come back up, and it's a theme that's not only in this book, but we find in the following book in 1 Peter and all throughout the New Testament, honestly. It's this theme that we should count suffering as a privilege, that we should count it joy when we meet trials of various kinds. And why is that? Is that because we're looking for pain? Is it like some really weird and twisted mindset we as Christians have? No, not at all. It's that we're adopting an eternal mindset, and that changes our values and our priorities, and that places our growth and our just being made more like Christ, being conformed to the image of Christ, the highest priority in our life. And when we have that as our highest priority, the things that produce that are going to be things that we accept readily, things we're excited for. And one of those things is suffering. Even though it's difficult and even though it's not something that's fun, it's something that we can count as joy, because we know that it has a purpose. It has been redeemed by God for a higher purpose. It's not for our pain, but it's actually for our growth. It's not something that's pleasurable. It is painful, but it does grow us, because when we suffer, we begin to realign our priorities. We see things differently, and we walk in the way of Jesus, who suffered on our behalf. So when you're going through hard times and you're facing trials, recognize this is what's going to produce in me a faith that lasts. It's going to produce a faith that is tested and tried and true and is made stronger for having gone through the fire. That is powerful. It's difficult, but I want you to really think about that. And maybe if you're going through a hard time right now, I want to encourage you. There is a purpose for your pain. All right, guys, there are just too many good verses in James 1. It is so hard to pick just one, so I'm going to pick two, even though I really want to pick like more than fits on my hand. But it's a classic one. I can't do James 1 without doing James 1:19, which says this: "Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger." Quick to hear, or as other translations put it, quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger, to get angry. This is wisdom if I've ever heard it. I mean, this is so practical. And I think just if you take nothing else away from this video, you apply this to your life, you will see so much growth. We need to be quick to listen, right? Our first thing should not be to already have a response. And I actually gave a sermon on this, which I can link above. And it was on how to listen, I believe, and how to engage with people who are different than you, I believe was the title actually of that. And so we really just need to internalize this, rather than showing just a view of the world which says I'm the most important and acting that out through being quick to speak, right? Because that's what that really says. It says, you know what, my thoughts are more important than me hearing what you have to say. Oof, like that's difficult, but that's what we're showing there. Our opinion matters more than them, but out of submission to them, out of humbling ourselves and seeing others as more important than ourselves, right? Like we see in Philippians 2 there, following the image of Christ in that. We need to listen to others before we try to speak. And just as a side note, like listening before you speak is always going to help you speak better things. You'll be more informed and you'll take that time to reflect on what you're saying. And we have to be slow to get angry. No one wins when we just flare up in anger. There is an anger, that can be right. Like when we see injustice, that should produce something in us that says like, that's wrong. That's not how things should be. But it's not this like flaring up anger that we lash out on other people, but it's like a righteous indignation that we see like, this isn't right, but it's not something that is just off the cuff and getting angry. There's a big difference there. So yeah, just really internalize that. It's a great verse to memorize. And as it says, like, this will lead to righteousness as we go along. Or it says the inverse, that not doing this will not produce righteousness, which implies, doing this is going to help you just have right standing with God and others. So good. I hope you put that into practice. All right, chapter 2, guys, we are going to look at verse 17, which is a big, big theme that people think about when they think about James, and it's the relationship between faith and works, and this sums it up well. It says, so also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. And so something that can be difficult is in the Protestant tradition, a little just nerdiness for you here. They talk about something called sola fide, which is by faith alone, that we are saved by faith alone. Ephesians 2:8, it is by grace you have been saved through faith, not by works, so that no man can boast. That is a very important doctrine. And so sometimes we can read James and say, whoa, like you're saying I'm not saved by faith alone, and I don't think that's what he's getting at here. He's just nuancing it. He's showing us that it's actually that the type of faith that saves you, saving faith, is always accompanied by works. It's faith alone that saves you, but faith is never truly alone. Faith that has truly been placed in Jesus, when we have encountered the grace of God, it's going to transform us, not instantly. We won't become perfect overnight, but it will produce good works in us. It will change our hearts so that we will desire to do what is right. And so faith that doesn't have works should be cause for pause and make us say, ooh, like, I'm not sure that's really true. And I'm not saying you should be like going around like, I think she's saved, not saved, not saved. Definitely. Like, that's not our place. God is the judge. But maybe in your own life, be checking yourself like, is my faith producing works? I don't work to have faith, but because I have faith, it shows itself in works. That's the traditional formula that I think you want to be looking at in the way to approach this kind of thing. All right, chapter 3, another great nugget on wisdom and a wise nugget about, see what I did there. Anyway, let's get to it. Chapter 3, verse 17. It says, but the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. That is such a wonderful description of what wisdom is. And I think this is a great verse for those of us that can be puffed up by knowledge, as Paul talks about, that we think we know a lot, but in reality, we're not truly wise. True wisdom isn't just knowing a lot of facts. True wisdom actually has to do with character, and it's evidenced by these good fruits and mercy. If we are truly wise, we will be gentle, open to reason. True wisdom isn't insecure, isn't just opposed to people talking in a way that could challenge us. So we're open to reason. We are secure because our wisdom comes from God. We recognize that wisdom isn't where our value is, but wisdom is a gift from God. So we're open to conversation. We don't find our value in this. Like, wisdom has more to do with our heart than our head. And that's an important truth. And we have to remember that, like, Bible study, it's not just about learning stuff and then if I get all these facts right, then I'm going to be holy. Like, you can know a lot and not actually grow. But wisdom is when that knowledge is part of your life. You internalize it, it becomes part of your heart, and it changes the way you live. And that is what it means to be wise, and that's what we should be seeking after. All right, guys, last one. We are going to read from chapter 4, and we're going to end there. I know there is another chapter to James, and I'm not knocking chapter 5, but we doubled up in chapter 1, and I don't want this video to go on forever. So we're going to read a little section from chapter 4, verses 13 through 16. And it says this: Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go into such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make a profit. yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. As it is you boast in your arrogance, all such boasting is evil. And I know that's a heavy verse to end on, but it's a really good reality check for us. So often we can think we have way more control than we actually do. Everything we do is by the grace of God. We are but a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. And I want you to hear me on this. I don't think this verse is saying that planning is inherently bad, that we should just never think about the future. Like, no, I think Scripture clearly indicates that there is a form of wisdom that makes plans, But it's a very humble spirit that does that. It's not saying don't ever, say what you're going to do, but instead you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. We have to recognize that we exist by the will of God. We are at the mercy of His will. God is capable of taking our life, He's the one that gave us breath. He created the human race. Who are we to say this is what the future will hold? We really can't control the future. And so what this verse is telling us is like, remember your place, man. And it's humbling because we like to think we're way more important than we are. We like to think that our plans are set in stone. But your life, man, it's a mist that just appears and then vanishes. We don't know what tomorrow will hold. And so let us recognize that everything we have is by the grace of God. Job, the whole book illustrates this so well. God, He gives and He takes away, and that's difficult. I'm not trying to make light of that, but we have to remember we're not owed anything by God. We are not owed tomorrow. So let us have the humility to say, if the Lord wills, this is what I would like to happen. This is what I'm planning, but it's only going to happen by the will of God, by the grace of God. If God chooses otherwise, this will not happen. We remember our place before a God who is ultimately in control, a God who gives us the very breath, who animates creation with His life-giving love. And if I can just give you with one last thing to think about, that our life is but a blip on the radar of eternity. That what we do now is so small in comparison to eternity. May we redeem the days. May we count them as a gift each day, and may we take seriously the mission we've been given. God has placed us on this earth for a time. May we not take that lightly, because we are a mist that appears and then vanishes. We must be grateful for each and every day. We must live on mission each and every day. And we must remember that we are nothing before God. But because of Him, we are invited into a story that we have no business even playing a part in. But by His grace, He reaches out and says, I still see you. I have even seen your mistakes and your failures. Still inviting you into relationship with me. We should never take that lightly. That should still amaze us no matter how long we've been Christians. Well, guys, I want to say thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate you so much. I really do. It means the world to me that you would take the time to watch this video. I hope it just adds value to your life. I hope it gives you some ideas to think about, some things to chew on, to meditate on, and implement into your life, and hopefully sparks you to go and do this yourself. Go get into the Word and underline and make notes and just think about it and allow it to dwell in you and change the way you live. That, man, if that happens for one of you, that makes the work that goes into these videos worth everything and more. So thank you for watching these. It truly means a lot. And I just want to encourage you to be on the lookout for more videos, and more importantly, to go out and love God and love others, because that will change the world. Peace. Love you guys so much. See you next time.